Yeah, I'm in my family's basement. I'm up in Canton, Georgia now.
Oh,
And they had this basement that has like this little wooden room to the side, so I've turned it into my recording studio.
you record music too?
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
finding out more and more about you, aren't I?
yeah, I got to send you the so when we get off, text me your email because I'll send you an MP3 of my song "Living the Dream," and you can use it on the radio show if
Yes.
you're editing.
Yes.
So yeah, remember when you had your poem about dream? I'm like, oh my god, this is like too much happenstance because I just released a song called "Living the Dream."
Oh my gosh, I didn't remember you saying that. Are you sure you told me that?
I'm pretty sure, or I don't know. We were talking about a lot of stuff,
We
so
talked about so much. Honestly, you probably did, and I forgot, but I'm not gonna forget now. I'm gonna play it on the radio.
Hell yeah! It might be the first time it's on the video. Yeah. If you...
All right. Well, I am having the pleasure to interview Jeremy Brown himself. He calls himself the Typewriter Troubador. And I had the honor to meet him in Savannah, Georgia. You know, a lot of times we think things are a coincidence, but really they are not a coincidence. It's made to happen already. We just have no idea. So y'all, today I have Jeremy Brown here with me. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for giving me the opportunity to interview you.
Yes, thank you. I'm super stoked. Like the way that we met was definitely like a chance meeting. Like, and yeah, I love experiencing those types of synchronicities, and it just tells me that we're both like on the right path. You know what I mean?
Yes. Speaking of path, how did you know that you were on the right path when you started journeying out on your own and basically taking a leap of faith? How did you know that you were on the right path?
Well, before I started like troubadouring, like I was working at a grocery store up in Oregon, and you know, it's just like I just kept waking up and just feeling like this pull inside my stomach that like I'm just like I'm not like doing what I really am called to do, you know. It's just like that feeling like there's like a heaviness, like I felt like I was just like anchored, you know.
Right.
And once I finally like, you know, decided that I'm going to start taking the steps to like go out on the road and just explore, you know, that weight like lifted, you know, and I just could feel it like in my body, like it was like a wave of relief, you know, because it's like, you know, I was just having things weigh down on my soul. So like once I hit the road, you know, I kind of just opened myself up to all the possibilities because I didn't go out intending to be like a typewriter troubadour, you know, like I went out to do some soul searching, you know, and through synchronicities, much like, you know, how we met, I met someone who told me that I should try busking with my poetry with the typewriter that I had on me. So like, it felt like kind of scary, but like in that like exciting sort of way, you know. So that's how I knew that I was like on the right path and living my truth.
How many people told you to use your typewriter and use your gift in poetry before you started doing it? Had it just been one person or?
Yeah. So I mean, again, it was just like a very chance meeting. I was at a poetry reading in Flagstaff, and I had just set off on this huge road trip that didn't really have any like intention or itinerary besides, you know, doing some soul searching and going on an adventure. But I went to this poetry reading and I read my poetry for the first time in public on the open mic that they were having. And afterwards, I spoke to a woman named Verbal Kensington, who was in town training some females that were involved in slam poetry. So we got to talking, and she had done a lot of traveling herself, and like, you know, worked in like the tech field at the time or something like that. And I'm like, well, I wish that I had a job that I could like make money while on the road, because I'm really enjoying this like nomadic life, you know, week one in, you know, like,
Right.
but I only have so much savings, you know. So
Right.
that's when she suggested that, you know, I use the typewriter, which I had brought on the road to like write letters and whatnot. She suggested that I use it like an instrument um, on the streets, you know, to create custom poetry for people. So, and yeah, she actually was like, I have a ex-boyfriend that does this in Santa Cruz, and he does pretty well for himself. And yeah, so I mean, at first, I'm gonna be honest though, I thought she was a little bit crazy, but I you know, a couple days later, I was gonna go busk with my guitar on the streets of this tiny town called Jerome, Arizona, and it's a very old-timey town. So I'm like, maybe I should try this typewriter thing. Let's just see if it works. And it did. I wrote like 3 poems that day and made like $25. I'm like, whoa, I'm gonna go get me a meal, you know?
This
So
might be something.
yeah.
While being on the road, you know, I know that even without doing that, just living life normally, like the normal to-dos, because doing something like that, it takes courage. It takes you pushing your fears to the side. How did you manage to fight through that? Like, how did you manage to stay grounded and positive?
hmm Well, I mean, I really feel like I had like kind of a psychic shift on the road. Like the road is definitely like my medicine. It's like where I go to like kind of clear my mind and tune into the universe. And like I just kind of handed it over to the universe and trusted, you know. Like one of the other things that this woman at the poetry reading said to me was that, you know, if we let up control, we can trust that the universe is going to catch us, you know. And you know, that was like proven to me time and time again on the road, and continues to be proven. You know, like I can definitely tell the difference when I'm like hanging on too hard to a certain idea instead of just letting things happen, you know.
Right.
And you know, before I left the road, you know, I definitely just wasn't happy. You know, I felt weighted down. I felt confined to my circumstances. You know, I wasn't living my truth. You know, I was trying to do what society expected me to do, you know, like hold down a steady job, have a 401k, you know, stuff like that. And like, it just, I wasn't getting anywhere with it. I
Right.
was trying to do all the right things to the best of my ability, and I just wasn't getting anywhere with it. And I was, you know, I was like tired of letting fear get in the way of me doing what I really want to do and be who I really am, which is like an artist, you know? So,
And a
yeah.
traveling artist that touches people along the way. I think that's awesome. Like you have no
Yeah.
idea how much of an impact that you're having on people. I think a lot of times we don't realize that when we step out and use our gifts and our talents and our skills, it actually touches other people because they're like, oh man, like I've had this thought to do this and I've been holding out. If they're doing it, if he's doing it, look at Jeremy. I know I can do it, you know? And I just really look up to you because when I was riding down River Street, I literally saw you sitting there. And when I got out of the car, I was focused on doing what I came down there to do, but I happened to come upon you anyway. But I had in my mind, okay, I'm going to stop by there if I have time. No, it was like, no, this is the time now. Talk now, get to know this guy, and he's gonna help you. And you have no idea how you talked to me that day. Everything that you told me about pursuing your dream, how you had just left California, and you had been to Savannah for what, 20 days? That was the 20th day?
Oh no, I was only there for 2 days.
Oh, 2 days.
Yeah. But
Oh,
I'm coming back. I'm coming
you're
back.
coming back. Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, so excuse me. I guess I'm trying to make you be here 20 days. 20 days for 2020, I guess.
Yeah.
So speaking of 2020, there's been so much to go on this year.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything different that you did? Did COVID, you know, make you just want to get out there and do more? how did you manage to make it this far in COVID-19?
Yeah, like when people hear that I'm kind of on tour, they're like, "What? You're touring during COVID? You're crazy," you know. So like, it's really funny because this year really did like, you know, come full circle after like a huge like wrench was thrown in all of our plans, you know. But my original intention this year was to tour the country to promote my new book, Poetry Saves Lives. That's the poetry book that I put out this year. And that's an interactive poetry guide for healing. And I wanted to go out this year because I knew it was just going to be a crazy year with the election. And I just really wanted my poetry to get out there and touch people, you know. But yeah, so when COVID first started and that plan got sent out the window, I, you know, hunkered down. I actually subletted a friend's apartment for a couple of months, and just like really got grounded, you know, and really explored the lifestyle that most y'all are living, like going home to like an apartment or a house, you know.
Right.
And I gotta say, it was a little weird, but I'm glad that like I got the opportunity to do it because it really did help me like get focused, you know. It really did help me get a lot of the projects that I, you know, had a hard time completing, being so, you know, nomadic, I guess. Like I was able to format and finally finish like 2 different novels uh, during that time, and
Wow.
just really focus on, you know, getting strong and right with myself, you know, and looking at some of the patterns that I was still entertaining that was holding me back, you know, and just being like, you know, I can choose to keep on doing things that aren't fulfilling my potential, or I can choose to take, you know, the risk and do the hard work and get things done.
Right.
Um, so that's like what the beginning of the COVID journey was for me, was a very like grounding and creative and productive time. And then after a while, the reality set in, and I'm just like, oh man, I gotta continue, you know, making ends meet. So I ended up going and setting up the typewriter in front of these grocery stores that would have like really long lines to get in, because I don't know how it was here in Georgia, but out in California, they would only let a certain amount of people into the grocery store at a time. So there would be these long lines like wrapping around the building of people waiting for 45 minutes or more sometimes just to get in the grocery store. So I went there and set up the typewriter like right in front of the line, you know, like a true hustler. And
Genius.
and was entertaining these people who were like in a really annoying situation, you know. So I think that like if anything, you know, going out and busking poetry is like even more of like a service for people at this point.
It is. It's bringing sunshine to the rain.
Indeed.
That's exactly what it brings. So going forward, actually, I want you to tell me, because I'm hearing all of the things that you've done right, but I know there was a time when you had to have questioned if it was right for you, or maybe not. I could be wrong, but as human beings, we do have a tendency to question if we're doing the right thing. Like something may stumble upon us. And I was reading a few things in your book, and what is something that you overcame that you didn't think that you would overcome, but you did?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that everything is a work in progress, you know, and I think I've done a lot of like great steps into the right direction. And I think like, you know, I think we, like you were saying, like we all have like questions, and we all have like, you know, our ideal that we're shooting for, and sometimes we make it and sometimes we fall short, you know. I try my best to continue to live in like authenticity and not be afraid of like speaking my truth and living my truth, and not caring like what people think. But it is like a journey, you know.
Right.
So but yeah, I mean, I think I just like first and foremost, like I feel like I just like overcame my like inherent like self-doubt of like whether or not like am I a true artist, like, you know, because I haven't had as much like success with any like other project that I've done in my creative career as I have with Typewriter Troubadour. So I think like I think it's common for a lot of artists to question, are they good enough, and like
Yes.
I've been working at things for like so long and really like jumping through all of like the stages and going to the next level for years, and I can like finally feel proud and finally feel that like I'm like legit, and I think that that's why like I'm such like a captain of my own like creative career. I do pretty much everything myself, from like the project management to the PR to the design, um, to the networking. And that's why I like don't wait for gatekeepers to like open the door for me. For example, it's like I know a lot of people, they're like really searching for that record label to put their work out, or they're really searching for that literary agent to put out their work and get published by like a real publisher,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, I'm not going to be waiting for like someone to say that like my art is valid and needs to get out there. I'm going to do it myself, and luckily my like drive as well as my lifestyle puts me in the position where I can get out there and I can do the work, like, I can get my books in bookstores across the country. I just have to bring them there. I can do the mail order myself. I just have to, take inventory and go to the post office and run all the boring errands. Cause at the end of the day, I want to take as much credit as I can, because like, I believe in my passion and I want to share it.
Right. And you are so doing that. Oh my gosh. Everything you just said. And when you said earlier about how you had to, minimize the things that could have been possibly getting in your way, I talked about that this morning, because a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to do what I want to do and still do this. But it doesn't work that way. It's literally a sacrifice to do better in order to have better. And that is what you're doing. Speaking of Typewriter Troubadour, where did the name stem from?
So again, it just goes back to like
When it first
opening.
started?
Yeah. So when I was okay, so I drove from like Portland, went through the Southwest, went through Austin, Texas, went through New Orleans, and I made it up to New York City. And that was like my turning around point to return back west to Portland, where I was living at the time. And I'm like, man, I like don't really want to go back to work at the grocery store. Like, I have financed this entire trip. I paid for all of the gas, all of the food, all of the fun with poetry money. And I'm just like, this like is on par with like what I'm doing back home, financial security wise. Like, this could actually be like a real thing for me, so I need to like figure out what a name is going to be. And I just couldn't think of anything that was like really catchy, like a lot of there are other typewriter poets out there, and a lot of them take on like the name like poet for hire, for example. But I really wanted something that was gonna like be like kind of customized to my life and like my lifestyle. And troubadours back in the Renaissance era were like traveling poets and musicians, to put it simply. So anyway, when I was in New York, I literally woke up one morning in the back of my car, because I was like living in my car doing this first tour. I woke up in Brooklyn, and the first thought that came to my mind was Typewriter Troubadour. So it really was just like, I think a message from the universe. Like, and just like when I'm writing the poetry, like when I'm like really getting into it and getting into the zone, it's like tapping into that same sort of creative consciousness, I think, where it's like really it's like the messages of the universe are kind of like channeling through me.
Yes.
um like I write the most you know, touching things, I guess, when I'm really like tapped into that versus being like, okay, let me use my brain, you know? So,
Right.
so yeah, it really was a gift from the universe as far as the name Typewriter Troubadour goes.
Yes, I do understand how that can happen because my name for my radio show just came out of nowhere, and I was like, yeah, Zeal Real, that's catchy. So yeah, I totally feel that because it just came out of nowhere. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, you said that you're coming back to Savannah. Where else are you going? Do you have any plans?
Yeah, so my family lives in northwestern Georgia. And I haven't really ever explored this part of the country before. Like, I'm definitely like a West Coast kid. I spent most of my life out west. And so my intention for coming out here is to really like work the circuit, you know, kind of like how I've done on the West Coast, I guess. So I've also been typing in Asheville, North Carolina. I went to Chattanooga last weekend. I've heard of some other towns that might be a good option. And hoping to return to Savannah sometime later this month. So yeah, because Savannah just definitely had that magical vibe. I feel like my old soul like was like beckoning me down there, you know?
Yes, come on back. For anyone that may be aspiring to be not even just an artist, but anything they may be aspiring to be, what encouraging words do you have for them? What advice do you have for anyone that may be afraid to just step out on faith and make it happen?
Mm-hmm. I think the first word that comes to mind is resilience, passion, and primal.
Oh,
Because
interesting words.
yeah, right. I know. Yeah, I mean, and I choose those words because like you really do have to have that like primal instinct, I think, you know, because it's like, I mean, there are so many disappointments that I've had in my artistic career, you know, which I mean, I've been doing some sort of creative thing my whole life, but I've really been trying to make it work for like 15 years, you know, and just like, you got to just keep on getting up and doing it, you know, like not everything that I write is like, is gold, you know, a lot of it is actually very embarrassing. And I'm like, oh God, you know, let
No.
me put this in the trash can across the corner. No, but you know, you just have to really go through that learning process and like have resiliency as far as like keeping on doing it even when you run into challenges or if you run into criticism. And like that's just a part of who I am. So that's why I say like it's a primal thing, because like I really like feel like I was born to be an artist, a writer, a poet, you know. Like, ever since I was a kid, like creativity has been just a huge part of my life. And then I can't remember what the second word was. Crap.
Resilience, primal,
Passion. Yeah. And you know, it's just like, yeah, the passion is what keeps me going, you know. And sometimes like I go out, I'm just like, oh, I just feel like I'm doing my job, you know.
Right.
But then you know, when I have those magical moments like what I had with you, or like when I write a poem that really touches someone or really helps them, you know, or really excites them or really inspires them, then that's like when my passion is like reignited and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is more than a job. This is like,
like I'm actually touching people. I'm making a difference.
yeah.
Because that is why we're here, to make a difference. Whether we realize it or not, we all have the power to touch someone else and make a difference and help them to literally ignite something in them. Like you ignited something in me, and you have no ideas. And I'll share it with you later, of course. But I do want to thank you for allowing me to interview you, and I can't wait for you to come back. Please let me know so I can come get another poem. I'm going to get one for a couple of family members. So I'm going to give you a word such as I did then and let you have at it with your magical mind and creativity.
Sounds like a plan. Deal.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, and I really enjoyed this. And can you please tell everyone, for my listeners and for the radio listeners, where they can find you, find any of your books, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can get any of the Typewriter Troubadour books on Amazon, or you can support me directly, which I recommend, and get them through either my website, typewritertroubadour.com, or catch me on Instagram, again, under typewritertroubadour.com, and then I'd be happy to mail you a signed copy with a special message. And then also check out my new song on YouTube. It's called Living the Dream by Typewriter Troubadour, and it is on YouTube, Spotify, and on Bandcamp.
Yes, I love it. Options.
People
like options.
I'm going to get it to you no matter what.
Right. Well,
try.
Thank you so much for making it happen, because like I said, you're making a difference. And I can't wait to share this with everyone. When I go home, I'm going to show my mom my poem that you wrote for me. I haven't shown it, read it to her yet. So I said when I go home that I would show it to her and tell her all about my experience. But I'm super excited to have you coming back, and let me know. Thank you. So good to talk to you, and you have an awesome day. I'm making a vision board today. What are you doing?
Well, I'm going to get back in that studio that I was in and start recording some more music. So.
All right. Well, you do it then.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right.
Peace.
Peace. Bye.